This meeting is recording. Mr. Chair, you're ready to go.
Thank you. All right, so it is 5:01 p.m. We have a declaration of quorum, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. So first of all, we'll follow the agenda, reviewing and approving tonight's meeting agenda. Are there any changes or modifications that should be made? Yes, sir.
I would like to add an agenda item for tonight to discuss the email we got this morning from Mr. Massey about an update on the streetlights noise.
Okay, should we put, all right, would you like to make a motion for that?
I would like to motion, we change the agenda to include an update about the streetlight noise.
All right, is there, okay, are we all aware of that email? Yes.
That's a good discussion first. Are we all aware of that?
Yeah,
Yes, we are.
just so we know exactly what we're talking about. Okay, great. All in favor of adding that to tonight's agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, so we'll go ahead and add that. CAB staff, I'll look for your guidance here, perhaps if it's right either at the very end or perhaps like a 7B.
I think we can just add it to 7B and fold it into the community update.
Okay, so 7B, we're gonna add street light financing, I think was the name of the subject. So we'll just kind of go with that and maybe just have some general dialogue around that. Thank you, Roger.
You're welcome.
Okay, so with that said, is there a motion to, staff, any other items that we need to consider?
No other items from staff.
Okay, great. Then a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any against? No. Okay, wonderful. All right, moving into the disclosure of conflicts of interest. Those are typically filed. Are there any changes or anything new to disclose? Are we in good order there?
Conflict of interest forms are filed 72 hours in advance. Notice of the meeting was posted more than 24 hours in advance. There are no agenda items that required special notice, so the meeting is cleared to proceed.
All right. Okay, for those who'd like to join, we typically start with a pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance. Speak. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wonderful. Okay. Moving forward in the agenda is the public comment section. We do have some members of the public, so thank you for joining tonight. If anybody would like to participate, everyone would have about technically 3 minutes to speak uninterrupted. As a reminder, it's not really a Q&A session, but it is an opportunity where you can bring forward any commentary, anything that you'd like to bring forward to this board, the Metro District 3, and or CAB staff through this forum. So we'll go ahead and open public comment, and I will bang this because they gave it to me, so we'll call it open.
We wouldn't have given it to you if we didn't want you to use it, Joe.
I know, right? It's just too tempting. All right. If there's anyone who would like to speak. You can go ahead and speak
Stand up
here
at the podium, please.
and just use your outside voice. And as a reminder, this is being recorded, so that the more outside voices we have.
I go to board meetings every month, so I'm completely used to it.
In mind, I can't hear very well. I have hearing aids.
Alrighty. My name's Bob Colley. I live off of Mount Lincoln Road on Prospect Village. Just here to ask a couple questions, kind of as a representative for the handful of us on my street who've been wondering a few things. I know I only have 3 minutes, so to try to figure this out would be a little bit more difficult if I'm going to word it. So I guess I'll start with what I consider to be one of the more important ones. For the plans for Prospect Village Park that's being put in, is that a hard set? This is definitive. We're 100% going with that. How does that work if we're making a public pool, if we're paying taxes towards something that's open to the public? I know that there is a $2.5 million grant that was given from Douglas County. How does that work for the rest of the funding of the entire project? Are we paying for something that I can move across the street and pay $3 to get into the pool and lower taxes? Or is that something that we are now increasing the amount that we have to pay on taxes just so we can have a public pool? I'd rather that be an open field and a playground if that was the case. So just curious how that works for the funding portion of it.
Does it just take up your entire time and then we can have some conversation after that?
Okay. I guess outside of that then, is there any, I guess, forward movement on the finishing of the landscaping around Prospect Village? By almost every single street's mailboxes, there's massive open spots where we've been putting plenty of water, and I work in a water field, so I'm very comfortable talking about anything that you'd like to on that side. But we are just dumping water into it, and there's nothing but weeds. I'd rather kill the sprinkler zones, or if that was the case, just find a better way to do that. Water conservation is a huge thing, so just curious on that. And then the last thing that I really had was, is there a, and I know you have a budget, I'm sure if that's the case, you might have to amend it at times to have a certain amount, but is there a certain amount allowed per year that you guys have as a set number for a budget? Because I feel like we've approved quite a few large projects that will affect each and every resident in their taxes. And so I just wanted to know if there's a cap on that. So we can, I guess, potentially make it where our taxes aren't as expensive. That's all I really had.
Thank you. Missed your name. What is your name?
Bob Coley.
Bob.
Can you spell your last name?
K-L-L-E-Y.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
There is one member online. If you do have any public comment, again, if you would raise your hand, give you just a moment. I do not see any hands raised at this moment. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's just getting up the charger.
Okay, we'll just pause for a second.
Make it work.
We apologize briefly for the delay. Kaylin is getting connected again. We'll resume in just a moment. I am not connected to that system right now, so I'm not sure how well they'll be able to hear us. Yep.
Let's wait.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Of course, it's just giving me the spinning wheel.
How about you and I just swap?
Oh, there it goes.
There we go.
Sorry. It's my son. Presentation.
And you just need to start dates.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bill?
Good. Okay. Okay. Give me one moment.
That red, so that red outline, and we're good there.
Okay. We are live. Let me just make sure this recording is continuing. Yes. Okay. We are good to go, Mr. Chair.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, any other members from the public with comments today? Nope. Okay, all right. We'll go ahead and close public comment. All right, so just as a reminder, so the way public comment works, like I said, is really where we can obtain that feedback. I did take note of your three primary questions, which is around just what the plans look like and the funding, how that all that kind of works with the park. In Prospect, which I know you've had a lot to do with, Gregory, perhaps, there's an opportunity to chat through that a little bit. Finishing of community space, landscaping, and then, but overall budgeting to kind of help kind of alleviate a little bit of the taxes, bonds, mills, right? All of our responsibilities, what that looks like. Overall, I would say these are all answers that the CAB can definitely provide. I may ask kindly if during the management updates, if I know these are conversations we have frequently, so I'll turn to Gary and Jessica, if there's any items that you can or could address tonight in your management updates, that'd be great. Otherwise, we can ensure that the CAB provide responses to you outside of that. Any comments or questions from the board as far as public comment or kind of what we heard so far?
Yeah, I would just also mention to Bob here, there's also, if you go to the CAB website, there are email addresses and stuff there of all the CAB members or the board members. So if you do have questions and you want to ask those questions instead of waiting for the meeting, you can email us and we can get back to you through email also.
Yeah. Well, and we all live here too, so we're happy to have conversations and kind of chat through kind of what we're seeing. But in a setting like this, I think it's going to be more appropriate to have CAB kind of share their kind of responses to your overall items, but we can certainly talk more kind of outside of this session. Yep, cool.
So let me just make a comment on that also. There's kind of a little process here that isn't really articulated too well that people need to understand, I think. When you have questions like this, you can always send them to info@sterlingranch.com or sterlingranchcab.com, which is on the CAB website. Can't remember it, you don't need to write it down. It's on the CAB website. If there's anything that break fix, like, hey, there's weeds down the street or the whatever, something's broken in your neighborhood, then you use the 311 app to then open up a ticket. Now, if nobody responds to that to your satisfaction, then you can go to info@sterlingranchcab.com and then try and get a better response that way. If that doesn't work, then you can involve us. I mean, you can involve us at any time, but you can involve board members to say, hey, I don't think the CAB is responding to me in a timely manner, and we can follow up on that stuff. So those are the two different ways that you can go without having to come here and do public comment, is to just start out the process of sending it to that info@sterlingranchcab.com. And then also the 311 app, like if a street light is broken or making a lot of noise, which we're going to talk about, then you would open up a 311 ticket, and then you have a record of, hey, we opened this ticket then. And now we have a way to open a conversation with the CAB. Because I think a lot of people in the community get really frustrated because they think that they get on, a lot of people use Facebook to complain about things, and the CAB's not watching Facebook. So we want to have a couple of different ways of getting people to have, to ask questions of the CAB, who are more than willing to answer and address those issues. But of course, like Joey said, you're more than welcome to all this.
I work in local government. I've been in this field for over 10 years. My family's been in it for over 30. So I can comfortably say I feel that the whole point of a public comment in the board meeting, as I have to deal with every single last Tuesday of the month, is for these exact opportunities. I have people come up and complain about everything at this meeting, so I get it. But sometimes it's individual that we have. This is my first day off in probably 2.5 years, and I just happened to get with my daughter. I don't have time to even send an email most of the time outside of my work stuff, so I just figured I'd take this opportunity.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not trying to discourage you from coming. We just say there's other avenues.
Like I said, never seen a public meeting that I've ever been to. In multiple different states and cities, you actually get to speak and have this one.
Yep. Yeah, no, and we have every intention of addressing those kind of very soon. So we can get you back to the pool. We'll get you back over there very quickly on your day off. So, but I appreciate the commentary and kind of the feedback of the avenues you have. Okay, wonderful. So let's go ahead and move into the administrative matter 6A. That is reviewing and improving the minutes from our last meeting from May 2nd, right? Yeah, 2 months. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes in the packet? And if so, are there any questions, things to amend? Otherwise, a motion to approve.
Move to approve. Second.
All right, any further discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Wonderful. Okay, and just like that, we have made it to management matters. So I think Gary and Jessica, we talked kind of a just general update. So kind of what's going on at Sterling Ranch these days?
Couple things, and we'll get to your questions here in a little bit. That's not a big deal. We appreciate that. Burns Park funding request, you might recall that I have submitted, and now we've resubmitted our request to Douglas County for the parks, open space and historic preservation sales tax. And so we've submitted $10.35 million again. We have a pre-submittal meeting coming up with the park staff for Douglas County. And then we will have an opportunity to go in front of Parks Advisory Board on August 14th. That'll be in the evening to go through our presentation with them and hopefully have them recommendation favor or have them recommend favorably, excuse me, to the county commissioners for approval. That is to build that first phase of Burns Park that we've shown you in the past. And so just want to make sure you're updated on that. Roundabout at Eagle River and Waterton Road. Likewise, I have a submittal that I'll be sending in here this week to the county commissioners and copy a couple of the team down at Douglas County to request that they construct that roundabout at Waterton and Eagle River. And they have funds in a project fund that we hope they will access to do that. We've put together a package that will include 30% design for that particular roundabout. There's just a smidge of right of way that will need to be acquired, but it's very small and won't impact anything really necessarily in terms of development. The biggest issue we'll have is that there is some drainage that'll have to be redone underneath that roundabout, but that's just one of those things that we think is important. So that will go in yet this week. Don't know when that will come up. We're going to request a workshop with the county commissioners at their convenience. And so we'll go and make that presentation to them as well. We did post the Metro District Task Force report that they put together from after the state legislature seated the Metro District Task Force. It's on our webpage. So that is there. And then I do know, well, I'll wait until 7B to talk about streetlight noise. We'll do that then. In terms of the Prospect Park funding and fees, CAB is a public entity. And so all of CAB's facilities are open to the public because we're funded by public taxes. And so that's number one. Number two, we did request, as you all know and recall, especially in District 3, $2.5 million from Douglas County from that same parks, open space and historic preservation sales tax fund. Douglas County commissioners did approve that. And so as part of that process, Douglas County said, in order for us to approve this, how do you structure the fees so that someone who lives in Douglas County that's helped to fund that sales tax, how do they get benefit from this rather than paying the same rate anyone else would? We've structured the fee, we will be asking the CAB board to approve those fees in January. The non-resident fee from Douglas County will be similar to an out-of-district fee that you would pay at South Suburban, Parker, Castle Rock, Foothills Parks and Rec. So we have three different structures. One would be for CAB members that are free. One is for Douglas County residents because of the influx of cash that we're receiving from the county commissioners to help offset this. And let's not forget that Douglas County has not built a regional facility in this part of Douglas County ever. So we think that it's very appropriate to receive funds from Douglas County to help pay for some of the regional facilities the CAB's ending up building here that would be open to the public anyway. But it does lower the taxes that taxpayers in the Sterling Ranch area would pay. And then we'll have a third fee that is the highest for anyone that's non-Douglas County resident. So hopefully that answers that one. The areas around the mailboxes that are being watered, I'm assuming those are the native areas that we're trying to get to take.
Established. Yeah, and I'll follow up with Les.
Okay.
and our construction team on making sure that those areas, if they're not complete, what's happening, it's all work on.
So it may need reseeded again. Point well taken.
Yep.
But we'll make sure, in heat like this, native grasses don't usually grow very well unless you water them. And we know it's been very dry for the last 5 weeks until this last weekend, so.
Yeah, I will echo that sentiment. Jessica knows probably exactly where I'm going. When Sterling Ranch Development Company and or CAB and or a builder, whoever is installing community landscape areas and will just put native grasses, it, for the most part, isn't working. It's just dirt and weeds. So overseeding, and I get it, overseeding, water and time is what it takes. But if there's anything that can be done to either mix in native grasses with other options and other shrub material, plant material, whatever it is, but you walk around, I think you said Prospect Village, if you walk around Ascent, there's a lot of areas outside of the spot we're talking about, but just kind of Middle Fork general areas where it's already, people are living there, it's all established. There's a lot of just weeds, right? So just a little feedback. It's, we just say open space or just, native grasses, doesn't look good.
Yeah, just let me add what he just said, like Dreamfinder Homes we went to the other day, that was the same thing there. I mean, they a legitimate complaint because I know you guys are overseeding and stuff, but like you just said, it takes water. And so I don't remember what we were going to do about that other than grade it and reseed it. But there's got to be something we can do.
Absolutely. So we are working through the process of aligning. There are builder installation standards, and then there's long-term ongoing operations maintenance standards. Between the two teams, we're making sure that we're aligning those service processes as well as addressing in some areas where we've put either sod or seed in and around those mailboxes in those other areas. We're looking at how to update, adjust. We also have to roll in the new statutory requirements that we don't have unused areas of turf grass. So how do we use xeriscaping and other things to help us in those areas? So I do have 2 walkthroughs and 1 meeting this week to talk with the staff about how, what, who, where, all of that process. So absolutely heard, we are working on that and we will continue to update you guys on that.
On Bob's point, in particular in Prospect, that just we happen to live there. We can work to get better alignment between builders that have it for a period of time in the long term, because there's that gap where there's just the common areas just have a disproportionate amount of weeds for an extended period of time when some of the builders purview. So if there's ways we can create more incentives for them to maintain it better, that would be helpful. I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, there's it's all boundaries here. Wallington, plus all needs, and there's perfectly landscape ones. Perfectly done, and it looks amazing all the time. But I have some that have 3-foot balconies. I'd love to.
Can I add a little bit more to that? One of the things you guys have heard Gary talking about at the CAB board meetings and at other meetings is we are expanding the CAB staff to include 2 landscape maintenance technicians who will be, this kind of thing will be their responsibility, where if we're seeing slack and while we're aligning these processes, we can send people out and address those issues quickly. So we do hope to have them up and running in the next 6 weeks. So we'll have additional avenues to be able to respond to these issues.
Moving towards less dependent on contractors.
Yes.
Slowly
We can do
chipping
things-
away at self-sufficiency,
Yes.
right? Yeah, yeah.
It's a lot easier and faster and cheaper for us to be able to get those things done without being dependent on contractors for them.
More agile.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I was just looking at your bullet.
And I'll just address the last, which was on the budget real quick. So, you asked if there is a set number for each year, if there's a cap. So just there's kind of two different components to the budget, right? There's debt service portion and there's operations and maintenance portion of it. You know, the debt service portion, you know, that portion of the mill levy is really governed by the service plans and the limitations in the debt issuance. So there's a 50 mil cap on debt that's adjusts based off of changes in the assessment ratio, which is why it's not exactly 50, as the assessment ratio has gone down, that's gone up. But that's kind of fixed, right? Like that adjusts based off of just those changes. And then there's the operations and maintenance side of it, which is really based on and driven by the like operations and maintenance expenditures, which is different than the capital expenditures, right?
So it's more on the capital.
On the capital side, yeah.
And the larger and larger projects being added. That's inside the long-term debt on the community.
Yep.
It's
I think it's important to note that we're 20% through the build out of this community. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yes, we have higher taxes than everyone else on this.
You know, we have a presentation on that in just a couple minutes. Hope you sit tight and listen. I think it'll help you a lot. I really do.
So, but yeah, so, you know, on the capital side, I mean, I guess I'd say we'll talk about a little more about taxes here in a second. But, you know, you know, so will there be more debt incurred by the community? Yes, there will, because there's still a lot of homes to be built. There's still a lot of infrastructure. There's still parks to kind of complete the master plan of the master plan community. So will that, but I think the important thing to note for people that are residents is that, you know, the debt service portion of it, that's a cap, right? Like we can't issue more debt than what we can service. We can't access more capital than what we can service. So that's why it kind of rolls in phases. There will be more bottom line debt to be incurred as the community continues to develop through different phases. But the portion of the mill levies that portion of the mill levies will stay normalized as adjusted, I guess. But there's a few more things that we'll cover in depth in a minute, but just so is there a budget? There is a budget and a plan for how that money is expended. Sometimes that changes a bit depending on, you know, when new phases of development are triggered. So, you know, at one point in filing 7A, right, the next District 4A was originally going to be in 2023. For a number of reasons, the debt issuance was pushed back into 2024. So the work started in 2024, which is why you see some budget adjustments at the CAB level for that, right? Like that money had to come out of the 2023 budget, go into the 2024 budget. So there are. Yep.
What'd you say? No, I was just saying that I understand that we are against as well as working next year. So yeah,
Yeah, we'll be going through budget meetings here in a couple months, all right?
Starting in September.
Start up. So not that, you know, we want you to spend any additional free time here, but
we're fine. Yeah.
okay.
Went to the presentation?
Yep. So we have a couple of additional updates for you. There were 30 closings in the month of June, and as of July 11th, we had 2,349 homes sold and closed here in Sterling Ranch. We have a couple of additional updates. We have been receiving more and more feedback, and as the community continues to grow, we want to be able to incorporate the use of resident businesses in the community. We don't want to use printers in Broomfield. We want to use printers that are close by and nearby. So we have created a page, and it'll be live hopefully by the end of this week for residents, where we explain the public bidding process a bit for large construction projects, and then talk about our operations and maintenance bidding process, and that we will post bids more than $10,000 for 15 days in the on that website, so that residents with businesses that could service those contracts can bid for that, but also for those items that fall in like the day-to-day kind of operations, how residents can submit their businesses and their information to be put on a solicitation list. So as we're looking for entertainers or food trucks and whatnot, we can add them to request lists to give them the opportunity to be showcased or provide services for different cab events. So we're looking forward to rolling that out. We have a new park coming in Ascent Village. We are currently finalizing design plans for 6A lot 230. The amenities in this park will include a playground, a turf field, pickleball courts, and an additional pool. So the idea and timeline would be we have a pool slated to open in Prospect Village in 2025. Our plan for this is to have this project in two pieces. Early 25, have the playground, the turf, and the pickleball, and then work on building the pool to be open then early 26. So increasing that cadence and getting things moving forward. So we're excited about that.
Still include the jacuzzi.
And it does, so the pool is intended because we have heard feedback from the residents. They wanted a hot tub that was not necessarily selected for this pool, but we are incorporating that into this pool, and we're working through the design elements to be able to allow that hot tub area to be open year round. So,
Does that mean that would be publicly accessible also?
yes.
Okay.
Well, all of our,
Yeah, can I ask a question on that? Everything that we have has to be public. But certain things like a pool, a gym, something behind like a door, right? We can provide a membership fee.
Yep.
That membership fee, this overlook is very, very high.
$100 a year.
Yep. And the one in Prospect Village that's coming will be low as a direct result of where it's located, the funding, assistance, and being good neighbors to the rest of Douglas County. Is that a fair assessment? But everything is certainly makes public.
And yes, and we are not asking for county funds for this amenity.
We are or
We
not?
are not requesting county funds.
That one can be elite like this one. Okay.
And it's not a regional type facility. So I mean,
No.
Douglas County's not going to fund local improvements.
Yeah.
For something.
This is a much smaller boutique resort style pool, so we want this to be more for our residents.
And just for my own frame of reference, is this where, yeah, 6A? Yeah, so this is like where the Richmond homes are on the south of Waterton.
Yes.
Kind of catty corner from the future potential roundabout, right?
There are two parcels to that lot. The one furthest to the west will be a small commercial area. So this is closer to on the east side toward the wildlife board.
Kind of in between all the homes.
Yes, and shared parking so that we can take advantage of shared parking rather than building parking lots for every building.
Very close to the roundabout area that Gary is working on with the county.
So I wanted to make a comment if I could. Is that okay? I always make comments. So this park issue, right, with the, hey, can we keep people out kind of thing is, I think a lot of people feel, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong about this, but a lot of people feel like we live in a gated community and we can close off everything. It's not a gated community. So if it's not behind a fence like Joey or a door like Joey said, then how do you keep people out of your area that you don't want them in? Not to mention that some of these things are funded by taxpayer dollars by people that live outside of this community. So I think it's important to realize that you can't restrict. And I mean, we live, and this is it, I'll end it here. Before we even moved in here or put $1 down on our home that we bought, we came and toured the community and then we decided, hey, there's a cool little park over here, that zip line park, the one I mentioned last time. We actually came and tried that out with the grandchildren and go, wow, this is a nice little community. I think I want to live here, right? So, and that was because that's open to the public. There was nothing, nobody, asked for my ID or anything like that. We were able to use the park. So, because it's not behind a fence.
What I would just add to that is I think we can probably, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, please, I want to make sure we're sharing accurate information. Public funding doesn't make it a public place, right? Or necessarily cheaper.
So this, well, that's the specific requirement lies in, so the funding that you, through Metropolitan District, right? Like you sell tax exempt bonds and it's that tax exempt.
Douglas County Parks and Rec funding. doesn't make Sterling Ranch open to the public. We're open to the public because of who we are as a quasi-governmental entity. If we get funded by Douglas County for a park or a playground, it doesn't change the fact that that is still accessible to the public. Right? I think that's what we need to make sure people understand, whether there's public funding from the county or not, we are still accessible to the public.
Douglas,
Very good point.
Douglas County funding just changed the equation of what you would charge an out taxpayer for the same services. So, yeah.
And just like Greg, I think this will be my last comment. Because, so this might be an unpopular opinion, it might be popular, I don't know, but you know, I've attended several of the commissioner meetings, as well as when they bang the gavel that, you know, we got the funds. There has been a lot of pressure from our resident neighbors in Roxborough, where they were under the impression that they would have much easier access to our amenities, including pools, gyms, whatever, really pools and rec centers, right? When we opened this one with the price tag, I think that like heads spun in Roxborough. So now that one in Prospect, which is much closer to Roxborough, right? The one in Prospect, closer to Roxborough, is opening with a very, you know, appealing price for Douglas County residents. The feedback that we heard from the president of the HOA who was there was really positive, and I think they're very appreciative of that, right? So just how we can go use the courts that they have, right, that are open, they can use ours, but they can also get a cheaper rate to get into the pool and stuff. So anyways, there's a lot of history between Roxborough and Sterling Ranch before any of us, you know, set foot here, right? Maybe some of you, but we're already here. But anyways, I think that overall it's a good thing. And I think it's good. I like the idea of like different tiered structure prices, you know, based on, you know, different amenities, like this one being a much smaller one. I think this is going to be predominantly used by the people that live in 6A, you know? I mean, it's almost like you said, little boutique, little spot for them. So to open it, to make it cheaper for the public could be a little harming, I think, for the experience. So,
And the plan is, there's gonna be other pools down the road also.
Yes. Yeah, the one we're just talking about right over here. You know, another thing, see, I lied. I do have another comment. And I promise this will be the last one, just for this one subject. I promise. So a lot of people also, it's kind of ironic that a lot of people say, hey, I want my taxes to be low. Then we go and figure out how to take a $5 million park and get $2.5 million in funding from taxpayers. So we're paying, so we don't have to pay the full $5 million. And then we want to shut the park off from everybody. If we want to shut the park off and fence it, then we need to fund the entire $5 million, which means our taxes need to remain high, right?
it's still going to be public.
But it's still going to be public, yeah.
Yeah, we pay for 5 million or pay for 2.5 million. It's you got to keep that in mind.
Membership.
The Douglas County funding does not change the dynamics of
base component remains.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. Thank you.
Just a few more updates. I wanted to touch base because this is a global community issue. Not this past month, but the month before, we had a resident from District 2 come to the CAB board meeting about two members of their household who are not siblings who were enrolled in pre-K services and are being sent to two different pre-K schools. We wanted to just touch base that we have been working with Douglas County School District and the school board on ways to help resolve this situation. There are a number of restrictions in how pre-K or pre-kindergarten is serviced versus K through 12. So there are government restrictions on the number of children per square feet, the number of children to adult ratio overseeing them, because anybody pre-K and under could be babies to not potty trained to fully potty trained, and they might need more attention. So we are working through that issue and hopefully have a resolution for that family this week. So.
Okay, here's kind of and this goes to Mr. Kelly's comments a little earlier about taxes in Sterling Ranch. And so, you know, we've heard a lot of these different conversations going around. And so we thought it'd be a great idea to put together apples to apples type of comparison. So we can understand this and the community can understand it better. We probably as CAB haven't done a good job over the years of explaining how this all works. So this first slide is a map. And so let's talk about, well, actually, we're going to talk about two different things. We're going to talk about a new built community, and then we're going to talk about comparing Sterling Ranch to an old built community like Highlands Ranch. So we have facts to look at. What we did was looked at 4 different neighborhoods with new builds that are similar in age to Sterling Ranch. Solstice, which is our neighbor to the north, which is Shea Homes Development, Sterling Ranch, and then the Canyons, which is east of I-25 at Castle Pines, and is a shade community, and then McCanta, which is a Hines community, which is off of Crowfoot Valley Road, just north of Castle Rock. And to do this, I mean, we thought, okay, let's look at the whole thing, lock, stock, and barrel, not just the tax for the fire district or the metro district, but let's look at this in total so we have a better understanding of what the tax situation looks like. So Cam, I'm going to turn this over to you now. In lawyerly fashion, he's going to do it unlawyerly like and get down to the
I'm gonna
best tax.
try to do that. So just kind of a few at the outset, right? A few different things in that every community is different in terms of what obligations are placed on them by whatever an approving entity is. That might be a county, that might be a city. In the case of the ones that we're all looking at, they're all Douglas County was but every community is a little different, right? As far as who's responsible for what infrastructure, the burdens that are placed specifically on that unique development in order to be able to build, progress, and move forward. Every community is a little different in how the internal operations are divided. So here at CAB, Sterling Ranch, we have just districts, right? There's no HOA. Generally, there are some sub HOAs. There are some, those for townhomes and things like that. But over the blanket, there's no master homeowners association. Everything is run at the district level. Some communities draw that a little differently. So if you're in that community, in order to access amenities like this, you would pay an HOA assessment. And so, this doesn't take into account sub-associations. This doesn't go super granular. This is kind of tried to be not high level, but, like 1,000-foot view of what living in a community and a new build community costs. So on the left,
We went out and compared 4 communities to ours that are similar.
3 communities. We were the 4th.
3 communities. Okay.
Three ones that are kind of similar phase of development that are, they were kind of, yep, they're kind of facing the same questions that Sterling Ranch is. So in blue, you'll see the Sterling Ranch home. I put the address of all the homes that we used up there for anybody that wants to go and double check my math. We tried to find homes of roughly comparable value. At the top there, you'll see the assessed valuation for the most recent assessment site. Below that is what the left-hand number is the total district mill levy. So that's a combination of debt service and operations and maintenance. And then the far right number is what the total mill levy on that property is, encompassing all taxing entities over that property. So the next line down, I broke it out first into what portion of the taxes paid on the home are applicable to just the district debt. So that's debt service. So for in Sterling Ranch, right, the 3,746 number, that's the amount generated by the debt service mill levy. And then the next number over is the total district taxes. So the difference between those is the operations and maintenance tax. And then the total tax is what the total tax on the property is for all taxing entities. Below that then is an HOA assessment. So some of these communities, this first one here is Solstice. Every home there is part of an HOA. So every home there pays an additional $1,920 per year in HOA assessments. The other fees, I tried to incorporate ones that were applicable to all, and some of which that are comparable to what's usually covered in an HOA assessment, such as trash and streetlight fees. That's the annualized number for Sterling Ranch. And then the bottom is the total cost. So that's kind of what your baseline cost of having a home in the communities comes out to.
Go ahead, and then I want to make a comment before you go off this.
No, this is just the first slide. So I just, so you can see up there, Solstice, our neighbors to the north. Mill levies are
pretty close. The big difference is in the HOA fee, which kind of carries through to the bottom line. So as you can see, the total cost there for a home is 12,130 versus 10,922. I think the final important distinction I would draw is that money paid in taxes is deductible on your taxes. Money paid as an HOA assessment is not. So you can think of that money is a little more expensive to access because you can't deduct it from your taxes and you're paying it out of your own post-tax dollars. Yeah.
And is that in the fact where our HOA equivalent services and up is in the district taxes line item, or is it in the mill levy?
Sorry,
Well, I'm just trying to say, look, the HOA represents a basket of services, right?
we provide the same services which will reside in the operations.
You end up in.
It ends up in the operations and maintenance portion of the mill levy.
Online.
So enter on the mill levy side. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and a lot of it that, I mean, when you think about it, if you have two entities, a metropolitan district and an HOA, you have two different management fees. You got two overheads for those organizations as well, rather than CAB. You have one as one defined.
No, I got it. But anyway, it showed up it's essentially in the mill levy.
So, one other really quick follow-up question. Did you bring into your analysis a townhome that has an HOA here and or like?
Did not, like I said, like there are sub-associations and so some of these other developments, they may have.
I just don't want to pretend like that doesn't exist here.
No, they very much do. Like I said, it was not designed to be granular. There will be differences for people that, for example, if you have a home that has a shared driveway fee or something like that, right?
Just
There may be something additional to it tied to a specific service. I did not go granular with each of the homes because each circumstance may be unique. So,
So the unique, I mean, the major takeaway from this slide or these sets of slides that I can see is when you look at just the mill levy, you're not looking at the total picture.
well, the mill levy, yeah, I mean, the mill levy is a portion of it. I think you need to look at what the total cost applied to a house is, right? This is basically between a district and an HOA, right? Like those are entities that have authority to charge money, right? When you move into a community, you are agreeing to allow those entities to levy a tax or put an assessment on your house. So Caitlin, can you just go to the other one? I just want to just get through these just quickly to show. So here at the Canyons, you see the district mill levy total is, the district mills are a little bit lower. What's interesting about that though, if you look, is that the total amount paid towards debt service is relatively similar. And then obviously a slightly higher HOA fee for the Canyons. And then finally, is there one more, Caitlin? Yeah, Macanta. Again, kind of similar, lower HOA fee. They're a little bit lower on the tax front. But with the HOA fee, the end result is kind of a wash in terms of cost. So I think one thing that's important to say, right, is this is designed to just provide some data points against communities that are in similar phases of development, that are selling similar houses, that are comparable communities with, amenities and services, similar to Sterling Ranch. That's not to say that $10,922 is not a lot of money to pay. Like that's not what that is a justification of. But I think it's just to try to understand, the burdens that are placed on new communities as they're developing to pay for infrastructure, to pay for parks, to support operations as the community is coming up to scale. So that was really what the idea with this exercise is.
Then for my education, is it fair to say as time progresses that the counties put more of the burden on developers, where pro rata, if you did this 20 years ago, would essentially the counties take more?
That's kind of the next part of it.
Yeah.
You're gonna hear some of that?
As a general comment,
I'm just saying it's a trend, right?
as a trend, yes, cities and counties have gotten out of the business of really expanding infrastructure. The phrase, development pays its own way is, in many ways is both good and bad, right? Like new areas should pay some of the costs of expanding. However, the portion of that has probably expanded over time, and the demands for what is to be done have probably become more onerous over time
To the developer.
to the landowners and then
Yeah.
ultimately. Yeah. I think, Gary could talk on this a bit, but a lot of for example, I mean, one example is parks, right? Like that's one of the things that turns up a lot is that Douglas County funded a lot of regional parks in Highlands Ranch. So not shared partnership, not shared costs. They funded them. So just direct injection of dollars, which they have been extraordinarily reluctant to do ever since for any number of reasons, right? Political, practical, all across the board. But to say that, the environment in which new construction is evaluated now is very different than it was 20 years ago and certainly 40 plus years ago.
And the other thing I'd make note of on these slides, Sterling Ranch is a larger community, right? It's going to be 12,000 homes. Some of these might be 1,500 homes, 1,000 homes, 1,800 homes. You're going to not only, as this carries out over time, they don't have any additional amenities. In Sterling Ranch, because of all the different things that are going to happen here, you're going to have access to a lot more amenities that the folks that live in those communities won't. Your value will be greater ultimately in the long run. I mean, and the economies of scale to go with it. But okay, let me go, unless you have any questions on these, I've got some other things I wanted to talk to you about. But I've seen several things from people say they saw on Facebook and they ask about Highlands Ranch and why is Highlands Ranch less than Sterling Ranch? There's a lot of reasons. And I guess I made a point a little bit earlier about CAB, you have one entity here. If you look at what happens in Highlands Ranch, you have the Highlands Ranch Metro District, which is similar to CAB on a micro scale. The HRCA, which is a community association, or the HOA. You have Centennial Water and Sanitation District that does some of what CAB does. Or CAB does some of what Centennial does. And then multiple sub-associations. Some of the sub-associations are very similar, well, the town home or whatever. But about halfway through the development in Highlands Ranch, the development company at that time said, we can't keep funding this through our metro district. Let's create some sub-associations to take care of some of the park areas, some of the fences, some of the things that we don't want to do anymore. So they created about half of the homes there, the single family homes, have to pay a sub-association fee as well. And then we have Dominion that does water resources and everything outside of the community. Centennial does that same thing, but inside the Sterling Ranch area, CAB owns the infrastructure and put that infrastructure in where Centennial did it there. So we don't always talk apples and apples. Timeline, and I have a fondness for Highlands Ranch. Some of you probably know I spent 20 years of my career there. I loved it. I still own a home there that we lease out. But what's the beauty of Sterling Ranch? You've got a brand new community, a lot of excitement about living in a new home, the newest infrastructure, the newest technology. There's water efficiency and energy efficiency built into the whole plan for Sterling Ranch. You don't have that in Highlands Ranch. My lot was almost 5,000 square feet and it had a ton of bluegrass on it. I spent a lot of water. I used a lot of water and spent a lot of money. So let's talk about why there are differences in cost between Highlands Ranch and Sterling Ranch. The first bonds were issued almost 45 years ago when they first started digging dirt, when Mission Viejo Company came to town and said, here's this beautiful piece of land, let's turn it into a community. First home was sold in 1981. 41 years ago, my math is wrong on this one, but 41 years ago, do you want to live in a 41-year-old house or do you want to live in a new house? Why is Sterling Ranch successful? People want to live in a new home. The bonds in Highlands Ranch for the Metro District were finally paid off 2 years ago. So 41 years into the development is when those bonds were finally paid off. Next month, if you don't mind. Now, okay, you could Google any consumer goods category to come up with these numbers. These are just two. I said, okay, I'm just going to Google two. And these are the only two I looked at. Just to make a point, what was the cost of gasoline in 1979 when Highlands Ranch started? What's the price of gasoline today? And that fluctuates, it could be as high as $4, it could be as low as $3.20 like it is now. But that's about roughly 4 times greater than what the cost was in 1979. Let's look at minimum wage. $2.30 an hour, you could actually hire people at minimum wage in 1979. Today, you can't hire people at $14.42 an hour for almost any work. And so, let's equate that to the 100 yards of asphalt for a street, or a mile of sewer line, or a mile of water line, and you can see why those differences are there today. So that's why those mill levies are lower. I can tell you though, and then with regard to streets, just like CAB has to fund the streets, the Highland Trench Metro District funded the streets in that community for turnover to Douglas County. That's the beauty of it. After the 2-year period that we get through the warranties, those are turned over to Douglas County. We don't have to fund the maintenance of those in the future, but you do have to construct them so that you have streets to drive on. Happy to answer any questions. A little bit preachy. I didn't mean to be. I just think this is fascinating information that, we haven't done a good job as CAB sharing with the community, and we wanted to. So we started last week with the CAB board. You're the next ones, and then Metro District number 2 on Wednesday. And then we're going to also roll this out to the community so they have that information.
So Gary, is the essence of what you're trying to drive at is that you're building an infrastructure costs for inflation? Is that the message?
Yeah, it's a lot more expensive to build a community today than it was 45 years ago.
Okay. Just gonna noodle that. I might some ideas and how to convey some of that. Okay. Let me think through that.
Does it make sense, or we,
I just love that you called it apples to watermelon. I wasn't expecting that.
well, okay. I'm
Okay,
glad- I'm so
every
glad-
time. Yeah.
I started out as, I started out as choke cherries to watermelon, and Kaylin says, "What's a choke cherry?" I'm like, "It's not an orange, it's a watermelon."
No, my comment, Gary, and it's easy for me to say because I don't have any idea what any of this cost was 4 years ago. But I think to the groups, if we can somehow tie it like to what a road was, just try to make it a little more pertinent to the discussion, like, hey, it'd be really interesting, is because I get hammered on this all the time, right? Just like everybody else does. Highland Ranch is X or Y. That's the thing. And what would be really nice for, I could say is, well, road in 1980, costs X amount per mile.
Yeah.
And that road right there, that costs you Y. And I don't know if that's possible, but that would certainly help us quite a bit because so Bob bring up, we just get hammered on this.
Yeah, we can look into some of those other things, like those like direct costs.
I think that I'm gonna be defensive about something. So you're not actually saying to help you. I wouldn't prefer to spend for cost wise, just because of the fact that they're probably a third of the cost of what it costs.
They are today. They won't be.
They split the words up just today.
I'm very familiar with Centennial.
Kind of comparison. Got a friend who lives right over here, basically $1 a month. First water was on gas in 5 years. So again, I would just caution referencing it too much because someone's going to do research, file them on it. So to help us prepare.
I think the only other thing that I would mention too, that, when you think about, talking about the payment of debt and things like that, right? So one is a fully built out community that is, that was operating at maximum build out was able to refund its debt a few times and then retire its debt fairly quickly, right? That's, as you build a community, right? You're building the horsepower for that debt payment down the road. The other thing is so when those first bonds were issued in 1979, the residential assessment ratio was 30%. So you were taxed on 30% of your home's value as opposed to 6.7 now. So why is that relevant? We talked about the adjustment in the debt service mill levy ratio. So I just kind of did some rough calculations for so if you took 50 mills pegged at the 2013 date that is our kind of, baseline date and said, okay, well, what would your debt service mill levy be if you rewound that to, like these original conditions when these bonds are issued, right? That's kind of like what establishes the baseline. You'd come out with a 13 mill levy in 1979. So that's as that assessment ratio has come down, that's the rough balance. I'm not sure historically what Highlands Ranch debt service mill levy ratio was set at, right? But that changes over time as house values go up, taxes go up, as assessment ratio comes down, the mill levy goes up. So it's a difficult balance, but when you're looking at historic tax rates, you also have to take into account those other factors as well.
I think other people have a really hard time wrapping their mind around when you say the mill levy for the debt goes up and down, it adjusts, right? Why does it adjust? It's because you have a certain payment you have to meet every month, right? And when your assessment ratio for your house, the taxes go up, your mill levy comes down because you're going to be collecting, let's say you need $100 every month. Your mill levy will come down because you can still collect $100 for that month with a lower mill levy. Now, if your assessment ratio goes down, then this needs to go up because you still need the $100, right? And so now this allows you to still collect $100 for that monthly payment, right? That's what he's talking about, right? Okay, so we need to articulate that somewhere also, because people don't understand this, why does it go up and down kind of thing. They also don't understand the relationship between what you're taxed on. Like here in our community, we're taxed on 17%. It's been 17% since this community has been in existence, when people started moving into homes. Across the street, it's 9%, right? So, but you moved in here at 17% and it's gone up, 17.1%, and it's gone up to 17.9%, right? So, but they're seeing this huge increase in the amount of money coming out of their pocket, and they don't understand it's because the value of their homes have gone up, not the tax rate. I mean, those are the two main things we need to articulate.
They are definitely tied together.
They're not the main thing, about key points.
Yeah, more expensive. Yeah, that's the double-edged sword. Congratulations, your house is appreciated in value, and I'm sorry, here's your new tax bill. Like those are, unfortunately, there is a direct link between them.
Yeah,
and certainly in the last couple of years, which we'll talk a little bit about and talk about a couple of legislative updates here, but certainly the system is still trying to digest the really rapid increase in property values, which has led to really rapid increases in tax bills and has certainly stressed the system. So, hey, look at that. Legislative update. What a coincidence. I don't mean to cut that short. There are other questions on those other slides or things like that. I'm happy to talk about those as well. So this was the big activity from the legislature. This was Senate Bill 233 concerning property taxes. Essentially, what they have done is they've imposed a new 5.5% cap on local government revenue increases starting next year, which has certain exclusions. So there's a previously existing revenue cap in state statutes. A lot of times that is often waived at the outset of a development because it doesn't have the same number of exceptions and isn't calculated the same way. And if you development and cap growth at 5.5%, you would never catch up with your debt service obligations. You'd never catch up with operations and maintenance abilities. This 5.5%, new 5.5% cap has certain things like excluding revenue derived from new development, new inclusions, expirations of tax increment financing strategies. It has a whole laundry list of about 9 items that are excluded from that. But what does that mean for a district? That means that this new 5.5% cap will be in place with these exceptions. And so long run, what will that do to taxes? Well, it will serve as a little bit of a brake on revenue increases, which might downstream have some implications, particularly on the operations and maintenance mill levy side. Typically, when we plan out debt issuances, we assume about a 2% increase. So well within a safety margin of any cap that would be imposed. It does have a 6.7% residential assessment rate for taxes that will be collected next year, which is the same as what it was for this year. So as we're starting to look at it, if this bill stays in effect, we would not expect to see substantial change to the debt service side of the mill levy calculation. There is a $55,000 reduction from actual value that's applied for this year. Going forward, they have a more complicated formula, which is like 10% up to $100,000. They're working really hard to make me do math, which I don't appreciate, but added some complexities to the calculations. And then finally, does not become effective if one or more of the property tax ballot measures on the November ballot passes. So I was really hoping I'd be able to give you guys clarity early on in the process. There is going to be a little bit of some hanging questions pending November election. So we'll see what actually comes to pass. I know at least one of those ballot measures is qualified. I think the second one is nearly got the number of signatures it needs and is largely expected to be on the ballot. They have a number of other provisions. So once that gets settled, I'll be more than happy to provide just a summary of what those ballot measures entail. So that's the property tax ballot measure. There's a couple other bills that implicated, kind of special districts. One was this bill concerning the carrying of firearms in certain locations. The legislature passed it. It contained an opt-out provision for enforcement. Douglas County has opted out of enforcing some of the provisions. It really applied to certain local government buildings at certain times and parking lots around them. The opting out of it really just means that the law continues as it was. There's no change to rules, regs, policy for CAB that are implicated. Information to real property owners regarding property taxes, a disclosure bill. So really one of the main things around metropolitan districts in the last few years has been, to the point that Greg keeps bringing up is that, this information is out there. Some entities do a better job of making it available than others, but so the legislature is focused a lot on a standardized way for this information to be made available so that, tax rates and debt and things like that are presented up front. So when you're making that home buying decision, you kind of see those numbers in front of you. Is there one more or is that it? Yeah. Concerning covenant enforcement activities by metropolitan districts. So some new provisions in statute to kind of align when the legislature gave metropolitan districts the authority to enforce covenants. There wasn't a whole lot of guidance issued, which left a little bit of some open questions. You have a public entity enforcing private property rights, right? There's some that creates a little bit of issue. This is an attempt to close that gap. It contains specifically some policies to kind of put metropolitan districts in consonance with Kiowa, which is the Common Interest Ownership Act that governs HOAs. And finally, the last portion of it's probably like the biggest impact, which was it removed the ability of metropolitan districts to foreclose liens that were based off of covenant enforcement fees. So, a very rare circumstance, but certainly a pretty draconian step, right? To foreclose on someone's home to collect a fee for, dead landscaping or something like that. So they've removed that. Totally fine. I think they've created a really nice balance with this idea of allowing fines to be certified for collection along with taxes, which is a similar process that's permitted for overdue water and sewer fees for metropolitan districts. So it kind of ties it to a process and a procedure that people are already familiar with. Just to be clear, CAB, Sterling Ranch has never tried to foreclose a covenant enforcement fee. Would be very loath to do so, even were it still permissible. And so, but I think this is I think that, there's a few more nuances that Jessica and I are working through on written policies and appeal procedures that are contained in it. So those will be part of our coming rule and reg updates for I think September.
So this limits a metropolitan district from foreclosing, but the CAB as an entity still can?
The CAB exercises the metropolitan district's authorities. So you can't give under the CAB. Yeah, they gave the CAB the ability to enforce in their name. You can't give us more than what you already have, than what you have. So yeah.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a legislative update. This was a couple other questions just on the development work in 7A and 5C. Obviously it continues. At the CAB board meeting last week, the first cost certification and reimbursement from the special improvement district bonds was approved. So that's so the verified costs that were approved for reimbursement were about $1.9 million. Mostly it was the grading work that made a very obvious dirt scar, as well as some erosion and sediment control measures and engineering and management costs. So just as a reminder, the SID bonds are paid by the assessments levied on the property. They'll be paid back by either the landowner or builders when they sell that land for home construction. And this is just a table that I pulled out of the Special Improvement District Bonds Benefit Study, just to show, you know, this was, I know there were some questions about, you know, how much is being spent on what portions of work. So this was done by, again, an outside engineering firm to look at what the total expected value of streets, parks and rec improvements, stormwater sanitation. The private improvements are those that are specific to the lots. So money that cannot spend public money on, right? That's money that comes out of the landowner and or future builders or whomever. So I think the only thing that I would point out, so for example, like with like the Parks and Rec number, you know, that doesn't cover necessarily all of the Gary's proposal for like, you know, future enhancements in Burns Park that we're asking Douglas County for, right? Like those are numbers that kind of come on top of this, that this number didn't include, you know, big pools and big rec centers. It kind of would be kind of more traditional park improvements, which is likely what would be there for less successful in partnering with some of these outside dollars, right? To be able to bring in that additional capital resources is just extraordinarily important for that amenity enhancement. So I just know there have been some questions about that, so I just wanted to provide this information.
Topic of this meeting.
Well, we still got the streetlights to talk about.
Yes.
Is that everything in your community? I know 45 minutes, is that all?
Well, first, I mean, I just want to make sure what we do in these things is valuable for you too. I mean,
Oh, yes, I think so.
Yeah, very valuable. Can I ask one question about that though? Is it possible to say that for the Prospect Park, the bond funds that are being used for that $2.5 million, that's coming out of a bond fund, right?
That money is not coming out of a bond fund. That money is coming out of just call it like a capital improvement fund. So that would probably be a combination of like tap and facility fees that are
Everybody in the
paid by
community
builders and
pays.
developers. Yeah, so there's money that just ends up in the kind of capital improvement bucket, but we're not using it. There's not a specific bond.
Yeah,
that's being
okay.
drawn on for that.
Thank you.
The only question / comment I had on the entire update that we didn't already address was on the roundabout at Eagle River in Waterton. Especially with an amenity like a new playground, pickleball, pool. I think walkability is going to be really, really crucial. I'm a fan of roundabouts. I don't think roundabouts scream crosswalks though. So I would just ask that we make, I think the roundabout is still the right way to go. But if we can make it as crosswalk friendly as possible with built-in medians, you know, cross guide walk, you know, lines that don't necessarily exist in other roundabouts. I just want to make sure that it is a walkable solution.
Especially
People
going
notice it.
from one side of Waterton to the other is the biggest issue, not necessarily going across the river.
This way, it's fine. Yeah, it's crossing Waterton. Yeah, for sure.
we will make sure that's a
It's noticeable.
note to Douglas County.
Yeah.
And so,
Gary, that feedback about the taxes, tremendous. I mean, that's, as you know, we've had more than once. It's just, that's really, and then the historical aspect. We think a little bit more, but just having some, that was fun.
Certainly welcome feedback, ideas, comments on it. I mean, you know, one of the we really like to, we want to test drive it at these meetings and
Yeah.
discriminate, so we like continue to route.
I'm not taking anything away from the choke cherries or the labor, but I would like to say, you know, I get the Highlands Ranch is, you know, some under 20, you know, you guys are X, Y. I'd like to be able to quickly come back and say, well, this costs X, that's something I can point to in the community, and now it's Y. To drive your costs of goods and services home over the decades. You know, and I don't know if that's road or sewage, but just some snappy thing that puts it right into context.
but we'll see if we can figure that out. I mean, Yeah, I know you, like I said, I only Googled two things, but these are things people know.
No,
Yeah, but at that, that's just, we ought to be able to guess, hey, this costs roughly that based on public records. And this is what finds some apples to apples.
Easier to understand.
That would be.
and how many residents are in Highlands Ranch?
Almost 100,000.
And so they have, once we're fully built out, they're still gonna have 4 times the amount of people to spread those costs out,
2.5 times, yep.
whatever.
The,
But a lot of future things that aren't here yet that will have to get paid for as well, right?
Yep.
But it's not more people paying for what we have today. More people paying for more things.
Sure.
I have a question. Next time, can we get an update on the library? I know I testified for
I
that.
can give you one right now if you want.
I mean, I know everybody's.
It's okay with the chair. I don't want
Of course.
to. Actually, last week, Alex Taylor, who's kind of been our Metro District champion for libraries, met with me and with Brock Smethels, the president of the development company, to talk about the library property that we'd like to see dedicated to the library. And that's that piece just on the north side of the school site on Taylor River. And there's a wedge there right now. The district, the library district is having an event. It's a fundraising event in late August. And Alex is going to attend that at a table with the development company, and be going to some of the meetings with the library district to say, let's get this started. They'd like to have their design plan done in 25 and start construction, hopefully for the library to open in 26. 15 to 30,000 square feet. I know that's a range. There's a lot of stuff in play yet. We've got to work through, but I think that's coming along very nicely. The development company will likely dedicate that land, but they've got some requirements they're going to want. I mean, if you want something for free, you ought to,
You need somebody to show that's fundraising.
fantastic. Quick enough?
Thank you.
Great, yeah, thank you. Lights is the, okay, so then, yeah, we'll move to our new item 7B. Just, obviously, there was an email from a resident. We were all copied on it. Obviously, that is like hot off the press, just got it today. So I don't know if we're expecting a huge thing, but just kind of initial reaction, perhaps a path to some of their resolution or further answers on that.
Streetlights have had the power temporarily cut to them in order to make sure that the speakers are not producing that crazy racket. And we will have the crews back out tomorrow morning in order to troubleshoot and figure out what happened to the speakers, what's causing it. Is it a blown circuit, whatnot? They all seem to be in around the Providence area here. And we're.
It was a lightning strike.
Yes, yes.
At that
Like,
intersection. Yeah.
so they are going to troubleshoot that. And as a part of our request to them is to ensure that we have ongoing a process to be able to shut those off on the weekend. Since
I have a question.
we're trying to contact them at that. weekend.
Streetlights have speakers?
They have speakers, yes. So some, yeah.
For what purpose?
Tornado sirens?
This goes back long before any of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My understanding was, there was a time when there might have been, this is the newest technology. We could alert people that things are happening, whether it's a tornado, a bad guy in the hood, whatever. I don't know, that's probably not what the sheriff's office would want to have happen now. Tell the bad guy that the good guys are coming either. So I'm not sure they're really of value right now, but that wasn't something that we decided. So that was a little more editorial than I wanted to answer, but
No, you're fine.
Public, yeah, some public safety.
Community message.
Yeah.
It's not a functioning system, but a lot of the number of the streetlights were equipped with it.
So I think this is the genesis of the email. I think there's, as silly as it sounds, the streetlights here cause a lot of frustration, especially when they go up in cost. There are way too many of them for claiming to be a dark sky friendly neighborhood. I have 3 right outside my house, and I'm not even at a huge intersection or roundabout. There is a speaker outside, the one outside my house. And I was told they were tornado sirens. And the one tornado that happened just over a year ago that went through Highlands Ranch, none of them did anything. So the fact that the speakers don't work, the little lights on the top aren't functioning, right? It really questions, why are we still building these lights, street lights the way they are?
It's a good question. And a couple of things I'd like to address. I mean, not, again, it's not argumentative, but this last year, we've extended, put streetlights in where they need to be instead of every X number of feet. And you might end up.
I have one I could donate. You can say, I'm gonna move it or else.
Joe,
Mhm.
point well taken.
Say, hey, sick cost saving, right? There's already 3 that aren't needed.
That's number one. And number two, we'll also be looking at the future, how this works when we start going into new filings and what technology we want those lights to have or not have. So there's,
I think they should light bulbs.
And that's it.
That's really the technology that's needed in a street light.
Yeah, so then my question is, one, the ones that do have speakers, is there a way to disconnect just the speaker, or is it required that the ones that have speakers have to be connected?
There's there's some nuance.
Well, yes.
There's some nuance to it, I guess.
Yeah, we are working through a process on what can we or can we not. That's part of what they're working on right now is, can we disconnect them? Do we have to spend money to fix them? No, I don't believe we need to, but that's something that we need to talk to Gary about and take to the CAB board, that this will cost X dollars. And is this something we wish to pursue? Because there's numbers involved in that.
yeah, with our recommendations, and I'm
Yeah.
good at making recommendations. I
Yeah.
don't always carry the day, but that's okay.
I mean, I guess I'd say to the question of why, right? I mean, at the outset, it was as part of a, technologically integrated community, and bringing Siemens on board as a partner was part of that. And as part of that, there were some commitments made for, bulk ordering of certain numbers of streetlights in order to be able to make that work. So that's part of the reason why, right, is, kind of their financial relationships. That doesn't mean it continues in perpetuity. At the end of the day, it is about the right infrastructure for the community is the most important driving factor for all of this.
And is there any type of warranty on these streetlights?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing that I was going to address that was in the email too is that, the initial cost of construction or capital expenses, those are paid for, wrapped up in either used bond proceeds, converted to bond proceeds, right? Like that's a capital expenditure. Ongoing operations and maintenance is part of that's part of what the streetlight fee is for the ongoing operations and maintenance, not for the original installation. So I just wanted to make sure that distinction was clear.
I'm gonna make counter arguments, lights as a prospect, as your water, as your floor, as you get more rock, sawed or not sawed, but the ground up wood chips, when you have weather and you have snow plows and wind, you get a lot of that debris all over your streets, and having lots of street lights and you can walk at night is actually a good thing, because when you come through on plows, you come through on wind, it goes everywhere, because as time goes on, as the water requirements have constricted and you put less ground cover, we have a lot more debris during weather. And so the streetlights are actually helpful from a safety view at night.
In the winter months, at least.
Well, for me, it's also that because you get 50 miles.
Don't drive through solstice.
What's that?
Don't drive or walk in solstice. You may not know where you're at.
I'm just.
It's unsafe. It's very unsafe. It's very unsafe over there.
They have a lot less rock.
Rock?
Yeah.
More grass, less rock.
Okay.
Any other questions on that staff can answer for you guys?
Who's gonna answer the email?
We'll get back to them.
Yeah, that's you guys.
We will.
I just want to make sure.
And we realize, Roger, when more than 2 board members are on an email, that we have that.
Oh, no, I get it. I just wanted to be clear that I don't have to respond.
Boy, I don't think there was any intention that any of us would be responding to that, so.
Just want to make sure. Don't want to see, it, slip through the cracks.
Okay,
Not let that happen.
cool. So the okay, you good on streetlights? All right, perfect. Financial matters. Cam.
Right, time for the one action item. As you'll remember, we had mentioned that when the change in auditors was made back in March 2024, that we might need to do an audit extension. Audits are due by the end of July. Obviously, we don't have an audit to present to you, so we are requesting the audit extension. In order to expedite the filing of it, it was signed, so we're asking that you guys ratify the extension. Our plan is to bring the audit to you in August. The field work and financial testing is kind of wrapping up, so that should be on track. If there's any change, we'll let you guys know, but the plan would be to have that to present to you guys in August. And again, this extension was really just because of timing, right? Changing in March, audit calendars were full, not a result of any issue with any of the audits that are being performed. Any questions?
Not to get ahead of ourselves, but the next item is talking about canceling the August meeting. So do we need to
It's
rethink?
next week. So it's September.
Yeah, so we do need a motion and a vote on ratifying this.
We define that to be
September 5th.
instead of August.
Correct.
Yes, because of the timing of your meeting, it would be your September
September
meeting.
5th.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you for the calendar check here.
So we're good on discussion on this matter. So I move that we ratify the 2023 audit extension.
Any further dialogue, discussion on that? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. You are ratified.
Thank you very much. So then, as Joey just mentioned, the meeting next week, right? Is that next week?
Yeah, next week. Yeah, it would have been next Thursday.
Sweet.
Sorry, there goes summer. Yeah. So we'll plan on not holding that meeting and
So is this where I have to bring up my one little tiny point that I don't want to spend a lot of time on? All right, I have one point that I want to bring up, because people are always asking me about this. Can we put a line item on our budget that say, this is how much we this as part of the revenue, this is how much we collected for fines and fees and things like that, or that kind of thing. Because people are suspicious about what got collected. And I don't know if they care where it goes, because it just gets thrown into a big budget to pay for fireworks or whatever. I don't know, but they want a line item that says, here's how much we collected from fines.
So monthly community standards committee, and that's presented to us every single month.
every
Yeah, we're in it together. Exactly the line item, the month to date, year to date by month collections of fines. It's all there, 100% available.
I think one of the reasons it's not a line item in the budget is that at the cap, we don't budget to collect fines, right? Like, we would prefer that number is zero. So
Yeah.
when but to your point, like the historical reporting, I mean, we can certainly pull that out. When we talk about the operations and maintenance expenses part of the budget, we can certainly report, like, here's how much was collected in the previous year, because to your point, I mean, that should be visible.
It's just getting put into the general coffers. Joe and I talked about this one
Or
point. The community standards committee, it's like, it'd be nice to say, hey, we're going to use this for a specific purpose, like beautifying the community, that we're going to use it to buy a park bench or something like that. So they could see, hey, this is being used for the purpose of why we collected it.
That's interesting feedback, because I would actually, like how Roger's saying, I'm comfortable with the visibility of what is coming in. I'd almost, to Roger's point, be more interested in how it's being used. Even if it just says, we're just moving it into the party fund, the lifestyle fund, it just kind of goes there, whatever, right?
Whatever.
But where did it go is more of a question I have than how much.
And maybe it's because to be clear, statute used within the covenant enforcement realm. So we don't, and it's not like spelled out within that. It's in the general fund budget that would pay for, for the cost of operating covenant enforcement activities for.
Face parks to need
Paper, postage, those kinds of things.
I think the point is that we just want to make it so you can't have people going, oh, you're lining pockets of the developer, right? You don't want any of that kind of stuff. You want to see The money's coming in for the fines and it's being used for this. And whatever this is, it doesn't really,
Or maybe a way just to handle in a footnote disclosure, just say, and I don't know, you can bring it down to District 3, but it's alluded to that it's collecting.
Those fees are part of the O and M budget, and we tend to do a much more detailed presentation on the O and M budget. And if it is that much of a concern for residents, we can talk about that during one of the many budget presentations we do on the O and M budget. If it's Resident Advisory Committee at Town Hall, did we talk about it at these meetings? We can put it at the Finance Committee meeting. We can talk about it and have some additional information available for residents if there is that much.
yeah, because I have people come up and ask me all the time, and they're enlightened people that aren't even the conspiracy people. They come up and ask me about it. Okay.
Someone come to the city standards committee meeting and they'll know.
I was gonna say, and now that this year that they're more accessible too, and they are being recorded, maybe your verbiage is go online and go check out the finance committee meeting where we discuss that, and it'll be able to provide you with a lot more detail, or some, like, point them.
I could point to, here's, follow this link, here's your financial statements. Right there, there's the line.
Well, there's a miscellaneous income line item, right?
Yeah.
12,000 things.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to ask for the September meeting, just to see a year-to-date total of what's been collected with just a one bullet point that says this goes into O and M? So we see that it goes into ourselves. into
somewhere.
cap. Can we just see that? And then maybe in January, see the final, and then that was the 2024, and we just do a spot check once or twice a year. Is that so? There's really nothing for us to do on that. It's really just a management update to kind of help combat the feedback.
Visibility and transparency.
Very appreciate the communication.
I mean, I can just pull up like.
First,
these
January
emails,
2025.
I can burn it up, show it to you, but it would be better if it's a little more formalized, but.
Yes.
Okay. So our next meeting is September 5th, 2024, 5 PM. That feels like it's dangerously close to like maybe Labor Day, but do we think?
I think it is the Thursday
It
after.
is the Thursday after Labor Day, yeah.
So the first day of NFL football season.
But who's counting? All right, are there
I am.
any initial attendance concerns with that date?
I'm not concerned.
No.
All right, then we should have a quorum. If that changes, please let us know. Otherwise, I think we just need a motion to adjourn today's
I
meeting.
move that we adjourn the meeting.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. I think we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.